My wife cheated with her coworker and ended up pregnant. She thought I'd forgive her. But when I walked away without a word, her affair partner dumped her too. Now she's raising the consequences alone. Hello Reddit I+ here. My name is Elliot and I'm 34 years old. I thought I had my life perfectly aligned. A stable career, a beautiful wife, a plan for the future, and enough ambition to keep moving forward. But all of that crumbled when I discovered the truth about my marriage. I met Rachel when I was 27 and she was 25. We met at a joint industry seminar in Denver. Me representing a small but growing software development firm, her working in the communications department of a global pharmaceutical company. She had this magnetic confidence, the kind of presence that made people lean in when she spoke. I was quieter, more analytical, but somehow we balanced each other. We dated for 3 years before getting married. At 30, I stood at the altar thinking I had chosen someone who shared my values, my drive, and my dreams. Rachel always talked about building a future where we would travel, buy a home, then eventually raise children in a stable and supportive household. She was ambitious, and I admired that about her. The first 2 years of marriage were everything I thought they would be. We bought a condo in the city, spent weekends exploring new restaurants, and even flew overseas twice for vacations that felt like adventures straight out of a movie. Rachel excelled at work, and I moved up the ladder at my company. I thought we were unstoppable, but then things shifted. It started subtly. Rachel's job became more demanding. She would stay late at the office, claiming they were preparing major campaigns or entertaining high-profile clients. At first, I believed her. I knew her field could be cutthroat, and long hours were part of climbing the ladder. But then a new character entered her stories. His name was Derek, a newly hired regional sales director at her company. At first, Rachel casually mentioned him, usually praising how intelligent and driven he was. Over time, his name became a constant fixture in our conversations. Derek came up with this new pitch, she'd say at dinner. Derek really liked my presentation. Derek thinks I should take on more responsibility. At first, I brushed it off. Rachel had always admired people who pushed themselves hard, but something about the way her eyes lit up when she spoke about him started gnawing at me. Soon after, Rachel's schedule changed dramatically. Late nights at the office turned into overnight stays at client conferences. She bought new work clothes, began hitting the gym at 6 a.m., and spent more time than ever getting ready in the mornings. I tried to be supportive. I told her she looked beautiful. I told her I was proud of her. But whenever I tried to initiate intimacy, she pushed me away. I'm exhausted, she'd say. Or, you don't understand the pressure I'm under. Our marriage bed went cold. Then came the secrecy. Rachel became glued to her phone. She'd smile at texts during dinner, tilt her screen away when I walked by, and take her phone into the bathroom. When I asked who she was messaging, she snapped, "It's work stuff, Elliot. You wouldn't get it." The final straw came one random Tuesday. I had left work early because I wasn't feeling well. As I pulled into our building's underground garage, I spotted Rachel stepping out of a sleek black sedan. The man driving leaned across, kissed her like they were in some romantic movie, and she kissed him back without hesitation. My stomach dropped. My hands shook. I didn't even recognize the man, but the way Rachel looked at him, it was obvious. I filmed it. My hands were trembling, but I needed proof. When she came upstairs, I didn't confront her immediately. Instead, I pretended I was sick and went straight to bed. That night, lying in the dark, I replayed the video over and over. There was no denying what I had seen. For the next few weeks, I gathered more evidence. I checked our joint credit card statements, charges for hotels, restaurants, and jewelry I had never seen. I dug into our shared computer and, with recovery software, unearthed emails between Rachel and Derek. They'd been having an affair for over a year. The emails were explicit, both emotionally and physically. Rachel had written things like, "Being with you makes me realize what I missed out on. Elliot is safe, but he's not exciting. With you, I feel alive." That line gutted me. I contacted a divorce lawyer. She told me I had more than enough evidence to prove infidelity, and she advised me to quietly separate my finances before making any moves. I did exactly that. Opened a new bank account, redirected my paycheck, moved my portion of savings, and documented every asset. Then I waited. Rachel must have thought I'd dropped my suspicions because she relaxed. She went back to her pattern of late nights and conferences. I bided my time. Then, 3 weeks ago, Rachel called me in tears. She begged me to come home early. I assumed she was finally going to confess. When I walked into the condo, she was on the couch, face buried in her hands, sobbing. I sat across from her and waited. Finally, she looked up, mascara streaking her cheeks, and whispered, "Elliot, I'm pregnant." The words hung in the air. For a split second, my brain scrambled. Pregnant? We hadn't been intimate enough for that to make sense. Then it clicked. I asked one question. Is it mine? Rachel froze. That pause was enough. She stammered. I don't know. It could be yours. Or Derek's hearing. Her say his name shattered me. I stood up calmly, though inside I was on fire. I told her I already knew everything. I knew about the affair, the hotels, the emails. I knew she'd been lying for over a year. I told her I had proof. Rachel looked horrified. She begged me to listen, insisted she still loved me, swore she'd end things with Derek if I just gave her another chance. She promised we could get a paternity test after the baby was born and rebuild our marriage. I looked her in the eyes and told her there was nothing left to rebuild. Even if the child was biologically mine, she had already destroyed the foundation of our marriage. I told her the divorce papers were already in motion. Rachel panicked. She dropped to her knees, clutching my hands, crying so hard she could barely speak. Please, Elliot, don't leave me. I can't do this alone. He doesn't want the baby. He doesn't want me. You're all I have left. I pulled my hands away. No, Rachel. You made your choice. And now you're living with it. The next day, I blocked her number. I told my attorney to handle everything from here on out. Now, weeks later, I feel strangely at peace. I lost a wife, but I also shed someone who had been deceiving me for over a year. Rachel? She lost everything. Her marriage, her affair partner, and the illusion of control she thought she had. And the baby? If it's Derek's, he's already made it clear he wants nothing to do with it. If it's mine, well, that'll be decided in court. But one thing is certain, I will never again let someone like Rachel have power over my life. After I blocked Rachel's number, life felt strangely quiet. For the first time in months, maybe even years, I wasn't constantly on edge, waiting for the next excuse, the next lie, the next argument. Instead, I came home to silence. No phone buzzing at midnight, no half-hearted explanations, no tension hanging in the air. But silence is a double-edged sword. On some nights, the loneliness crept in. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying everything. The lies, the emails, the kiss I caught on camera. The way Rachel's face crumbled when she admitted she didn't know whose child she was carrying. The divorce attorney was efficient. Almost frighteningly so. She drew up papers, filed them in court, and walked me through every step. Since I had undeniable proof of Rachel's adultery, things were leaning heavily in my favor. The condo, half the savings, even protection against Rachel trying to saddle me with child support for a baby that wasn't mine. My lawyer had it all mapped out. Rachel, of course, didn't take it well. At first, she tried sending emails, writing long emotional paragraphs about how she'd made a terrible mistake, how she wanted to fix our marriage, how the baby deserved a family. I ignored them all. Then the emails turned into guilt trips. How could you abandon me when I'm pregnant? Followed by anger. You were never the man I needed you to be anyway. It was like watching her unravel in real time. 2 weeks later, she showed up at my office lobby, mascara running down her face, clutching her stomach like she was the star of some tragic play. Security had to escort her out after she started screaming about how I was a coward for walking away. My coworkers pretended not to gossip, but I knew whispers were spreading. I reminded myself, not my problem anymore. While Rachel spiraled, I began rebuilding. I moved out of the condo and rented a small but modern apartment overlooking the river. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I got rid of furniture that reminded me of her, donated the dishes she had picked out, and kept only what felt like me. For the first time in years, I felt free to focus on myself. I started running every morning before work, pounding out my anger and exhaustion on the pavement until my lungs burned. I joined a boxing gym on weekends, not because I wanted to fight anyone, but because hitting something helped me let go of what was festering inside. Slowly, my body got stronger. My mind got sharper. Work noticed. Within a few months, I was promoted to lead developer, overseeing a team instead of just coding behind the scenes. The confidence I'd lost during my marriage began coming back, but freedom wasn't just about career and fitness. It was about rediscovering who I was without Rachel's shadow. I reconnected with old friends I hadn't seen in years because Rachel didn't like them. I joined them for trivia nights, hikes, even weekend trips out of the city. I picked up photography, something I'd always wanted to try but had put off because Rachel said it was a waste of money. And then, something unexpected happened. At a friend's birthday dinner, I met Sophia. She was 29, a graphic designer, and had this effortless laugh that filled the room. We started talking about travel, art, music, and for the first time since my marriage ended, I found myself smiling without forcing it. I wasn't ready for a relationship yet, and Sophia respected that. Instead, We started as friends. She pushed me to explore, to be spontaneous, to take risks I never would have before. With her encouragement, I booked my first solo trip overseas, a week in Italy, just me, my camera, and endless winding streets to get lost in. Meanwhile, Rachel's life took the opposite turn. Through mutual acquaintances, I learned that Derek, the man she had risked everything for, had been promoted and transferred to another city. He cut off all contact with her, leaving her to face pregnancy alone. She tried reaching out to his company's HR, claiming she deserved support, but he'd been careful enough that nothing stuck. She ended up moving back in with her parents, a shell of the woman who once strutted into every room like she owned it. Some people said she was bitter and angry. Others said she was depressed and withdrawn. Either way, Rachel, the woman I once thought was unstoppable, was suddenly very small. I didn't feel joy at her downfall, but I didn't feel pity either. She had made her choices. 6 months later, I received notice that the divorce was finalized. Legally, financially, emotionally, I was free. That same week, I found a letter slipped under my apartment door. It was from Rachel. She'd somehow found my address. The letter was shaky, the handwriting messy, like she'd been crying as she wrote. She begged me to reconsider, said she couldn't raise the baby alone, said she still believed we could make things work. I didn't even finish reading. I tore it in half and tossed it in the trash. My attorney assured me there was no legal tie between us anymore. If Rachel wanted me involved with the baby, she'd have to drag me through court for a paternity test. And if it turned out the baby was mine, well, then I would step up. But if not, I'd never look back. And I meant it. By the time a year had passed since Rachel's confession, my life looked entirely different. I'd traveled to 3 countries, taken hundreds of photos that decorated my apartment, gotten in the best shape of my life, and earned enough at work to start considering buying my own place again. And Sophia? We weren't dating yet, but something was building. She was patient, kind, and completely unlike Rachel. She didn't need to manipulate or compete. She simply existed with honesty, and that was more than enough. One night, sitting on my balcony with Sophia beside me, sharing a bottle of wine, I realized something profound. Rachel's betrayal hadn't destroyed me. It had freed me, because sometimes, losing everything you thought you wanted is the only way to discover what you truly need.